Well, welcome everyone to another episode of West Country Producers. Really good to have Will Little here with us.
Reporting for duty. So.
Will, we've known each other for quite a good, at least 5-6 years now.
Yeah, one way or another.
We've got to know each other really well, and some people might recognize your face, but do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure, I could do that. So I'm Will Little, 6'5", just for clarity. So I run two businesses. The first business, I suppose, which I'm probably more known for, is Little's Coffee, which is a second-generation family business. It's a challenger brand, challenging stuff like Nescafe, I suppose, is the best way to look at it. I run another business as well called Roastworks Coffee Company, which is a specialty coffee roastery. And both of those businesses I run with my wife, which is an interesting dynamic as well sometimes. Yeah, I think as an introduction, that's probably, I mean, I could go further, but I'm sure we'll tackle some of this stuff in the podcast.
So I know a bit of, you joined your parents' business when how old were you?
How old? I can give you a date.
Okay.
I don't remember how old I was. It was 2010. So 2010, I moved back from London to help my parents with Little's.
Yeah. And so you're running that business. Obviously, your parents are probably still involved. What prompted you to start Roastworks?
That's a great question. And at times I felt like it was a mistake because, you know, it's not... It's bigger now and it's another thing to worry about. So basically, the answer to it lies in the history of Little's, actually. So Little's, my parents started a coffee roastery. That's what they did. They started a coffee roastery in the late 80s in Finland. So again, a bit of context. Mum's Finnish, dad's American. I was born in Finland, but we used to spend time in America, sometimes winters, whatever. And my dad had, family all over the place. So we used to go and visit my great uncle, my dad's uncle, in Palo Alto, which is in Silicon Valley. Yeah. And in the late 80s, there was this kind of like renaissance happening in the food game in California. And I suppose it was a kind of, all the sort of hippies had kind of got into organic food. So there was like sourdough and cheese making and coffee roasting. And my parents were really inspired by this. So they kind of caught the bug in California back in the late 80s. And one year, when we came back to Finland, they decided to throw in their day jobs and start a coffee roastery, emulating what they'd seen in the States. Yeah. So anyway, that was the family business when I was really, really young. So I grew up around coffee sacks and coffee roasting machines and all that sort of stuff. So when we moved to the UK in 1995 as a family, I was like 11. So I had no interest. So I was 24 in 2010. Yeah, I can do maths.
Nice.
Yes.
You got there.
Yeah. He's like, oh my God, you put me on the spot. I obviously, I grew up in Devon, in King Stainton, to be very specific.
Oh, lovely.
Just
down the road.
Where's in the background there's raising his head.
We covered this, didn't we? Yeah. Teen school, woo. Cut that bit. It was fine. Anyway, and then fled the nest because, I obviously didn't want to have anything to do with the family business at all. And then when I was in London working as a graphic designer, this is sort of after uni, went to uni in London. As fate would have it, I worked really close to an amazing coffee roastery. So it was called Monmouth Coffee Company. And if the wind blew the right way, the sort of smell of the coffee roasting would waft through the office window. I was on Tower Bridge Road and they were just around the corner. And also I'd go to their cafe at Borough Market and it was like this weird link back to my childhood and made me reminisce about home and stuff. And very long story short, we decided in 2010 to throw in the towel with the London thing. So I was a graphic designer. My wife was a fashion designer. It wasn't my wife at the time, but Caro was a fashion designer. And on paper it looked great. Like, I mean, it even sounds great now when I'm saying it. I was like, why did they do that?
Metropolitan, amazing.
I was, but I'm just not built for a city. I'm not built for that kind of life, and it's fun for a bit. But I just knew that I missed rolling hills and I missed beaches and all that sort of stuff. So we came back, and Little's by then had morphed into a slightly different business. Where when we walked in 2010, we walked into a business that was roasting coffee still, but it had kind of become a contract roaster for like local coffee distributors.
Okay,
And it also had this sort of kind of crappy branded thing going on called Little's, which is like a flavored coffee thing. And my parents kind of always did flavored coffee, even in the 80s, they sort of did flavored beans and stuff. So we quickly realized we had to kind of choose a path, which we couldn't, I didn't want to run the business as it was too scrappy and messy. So we decided to sell the coffee roasting bit, retain the kind of branded bit, the flavored coffee bit. And that's what then has evolved into Little's as we know it today. But Little stopped roasting coffee back in 2013, 2012, 2013. So
Wow.
that's what.
Wow.
Just because it was there were two businesses basically.
Yeah.
We had a contract white label coffee roasting business serving local customers, and we had a branded thing with lots of potential.
Yeah.
And I kind of figured that, well, I just gravitated towards a branded thing. I wanted to build a brand. I wanted to saw opportunity there. Yeah. But actually, after we sold the roasting side of Little's, I was like, I kind of miss like I want to do coffee roasting, but I didn't want to do it like my dad did.
Yeah.
So I started Roastworks. So in 2015, I was like, I'm going to do this my own way, and it kind of started as a side hustle, as a bit of a hobby, and it's not that anymore. That's a really long-winded way of explaining it, but it's difficult. It's been like 40 years nearly. So it's like
amazing.
Yeah. So that was it really. Just wanted to. I had a specialty coffee itch I wanted to scratch. Probably that thing when I was in London, going to Monmouth.
That nostalgia for you, really.
It was a combination of that. It's probably like slightly genetic by then, and also Square Mile coffee roasters and Monmouth coffee roasters and all those like early stage kind of third wave things that I'd witnessed in 2009, 2010 in London. I just wanted to emulate that. That was my journey. That's my version of what my parents did back in the 80s.
I know a lot about you look at your roaster. Tell us a little bit about your roaster.
Thank you, Lou, for that segue. Well, it is amazing. So our main production roaster is a 60 kilo GW Bath. It's a very rare machine. It was built in Germany in the late 1950s. But what's very unique about this machine is that it's actually the roasting machine my parents used when they roasted coffee. So to make the story even more complicated, when we sold the coffee roasting part of Little's, we sold the trade, but we didn't sell the machines because we sold it to a bigger roaster and they had roasting machines. So my dad basically had a roasting machine in storage. So when I started Roastworks, I bought a very small machine with my own money, and then it evolved and evolved. And by 2016, I had this contract but I was supplying Marks and Spencer's with a branded product, which is super, super rare. Yeah. It was amazing. It was a massive leg up. And they had this Taste of the British Isles thing that they were doing for a couple of years. I was really fortunate to get an opportunity there. And I needed a bigger roasting machine. And I was like, I didn't really need one as big as what my parents had, 60 kilo. But I was like, damn, it's just there. So I was like, Dad, can I have the roasting machine? And he was like, well, yeah. So I took hold of it, or ownership of it, but it needed a full refurb. So in 2016, I spent 6 months refurbing this amazing beast of an old roasting machine. And to this day, it's still our main production roaster. And what's really nice is that, I don't roast on it anymore particularly. I've got guys who do that. But, to look at that machine and for that still to be putting food on my family's table after nearly 40 years is actually, it's like... a little bit one of those. Yeah. It's a proper family heirloom.
Yeah. What's special about that machine itself? I know there's a lot of memories and What, with regards to the roasting process, does it make it really special?
Yeah, I think it does. So I think that the main draw of it is that it's that nostalgia and the sentimental piece, but it's actually a really competent bit of kit. So I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to coffee roasters.
I'd hope so.
Yeah, I've got another one. Well, I've got several actually, and so I've got a small version of the 60 kilo, and it's in storage, and I want at some point to get enough time to refurbish that one as well. But it's a 30 kilo version of a 60 kilo version. It actually belonged to Square Mile Coffee Roasters. I acquired it several years ago from them because they were upgrading. So I've got a kind of a soft spot for this type of roaster, this thing called a GW Bath Monado. What makes it unique is that it was engineered by these incredible people who basically were tasked with this company, GW Bath in Germany. They sort of commissioned all these engineers to kind of come up with a new way of roasting coffee. And up until then, all coffee roasters had kind of the same design where this is nerdy, but the coffee, when you finish the roasting cycle, you open a door on the front of the roasting drum, and the beans flow out of the front of the drum into a cooling pan, which then cools the beans from 200 and something degrees to ambient temperature in 4 minutes or whatever. But the look and design of most coffee roasters up until then, it was exactly the same. What GW Bath realised, or the engineers there realised, that there was a handicap to that type of process because it meant that front plate of the roasting machine couldn't be very thick. And all those roasting machines were made of cast iron because its thermal stability when you're roasting is super important. So what you're essentially doing is you're putting 60 kilos of cold beans or ambient temperature beans into a roasting drum. And with a burner, and hot air, convection, you're trying to heat those beans up kind of as quickly as possible, but really in about sort of 11, 12 minutes. And the more latent heat you have in the machine itself, the more developed that roaster is going to be, the better result you're going to get up to a certain extent. And so latent thermal mass is really important. So what they did is they designed a new type of roaster that the beans actually come out of the middle of the drum, which is kind of weird. And they designed this really overcomplicated mechanism to allow that to happen. It allowed them to put way more cast iron at the front and the back of the roasting drum. So what's unique about the GW Bath is that it's a really, really heavy machine with lots of cast iron, lots of thermal sort of stability.
Yeah.
And what we find, there's lots of modern roasters that do a great job. It's not like, and it's not even an Arga versus Neff, hide and slide or slide and hide, whatever it's called. It's not really the right analogy, but it's all about, and without getting too geeky, it's about the way you get the coffee to a certain temperature in a certain time. We log the kind of what looks like a Nike tick a lot of the time, the sort of roast curve, and which we call the roasting profile, and that the way we apply heat throughout the roasting process matters a lot. And the way the bath does it, you just tend to get a slightly more balanced, slightly sweeter cup. If you want like real clarity and really light roast clarity with like, you've got these crazy coffees that are, crazy, for filter coffee or whatever, I don't think the GW Bath is the best tool.
Okay.
But for like a really tasty espresso that makes a great flat white, I don't think there's a better bit of kit in the market, if I'm honest. So that's nerdy. Wow.
That was amazing.
I went in the zone. I was in the zone.
Honestly, you're in a flow state there.
You were like,
that was insane.
like in Dragon Ball Z, you started like glowing.
Yes.
The thing is as well, like there's so much like nerdy detail I could go into to explain the science behind it, but I was like, don't do it.
It's really interesting though. It's really, because I don't know how long I thought it took to like roast beans, but you said, was it 11 minutes?
Yeah, so different roasters do it in different ways, and there's guys doing it in like 6 minutes or whatever. I think that anything below about 9 minutes, you start compromising certain compounds, flavors in the coffee. So we roast between about 10 and 12 minutes, depending on what coffee it is and depending on sort of what the application is. So darker roast, we go a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
One of the things I really love about your coffee, and Truth especially, is that I've had lots of coffees that are just way over roasted and it's just really bitter. But Truth is like, it's really smooth, really, really palatable, and it's not over roasted.
Well, that's it. You want, and so we call there's a phase at the end of the roasting cycle called the development phase, and that's kind of where you win or lose the battle in terms of things like sweetness, acidity, bitterness. If you actually know coffee and you're listening to this, I know there's more to it than that. All right, I'm just trying to make it.
Dumb it down for us.
Yeah, I know what I'm doing. All right, but largely the development phase at the end of the roasting cycle, the last sort of 10 to 20% is kind of where the magic happens. And again, that's kind of a testament, not just that I can't just. It's a good tool. The roasting machine is a good tool. The guys know what they're doing as well. But that's exactly what we're trying to do is that, at the end of the day, we're in Devon. Most of our customers drinking the Truth are in Devon. And yes, there are guys roasting lighter. There's guys roasting darker. But what we're trying to do is, for me, it's about someone having a flat white or a latte or whatever and going, that's really good. I want another one of those. Yeah. And so for me, it's not about what I want. It's about what our customers want. Our customers want what you just said. They want something really smooth, something yummy, works well with oat milk, works well with milk, makes a great Americano. And that's, I think, what we're really good at. We're really good at that. And
Yeah. Changing subjects slightly, and maybe also at the risk of going really geeky, but also getting really passionate. I know coffee is a commodity, and you pay a certain price, and farmers get paid a certain price, and that's dictated by the CE market.
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about some of the, quite frankly, injustices there.
Yeah. So we've got a bit of a thing with the CE market because, look, you've got to have a system, right? It's one of the most traded commodities on earth. That's coffee. So you've got to have a system, right? And no system's perfect, but I think the issue we have with the CE market. So you mentioned just before we started recording Clarkson's Farm, and I think it's really good to anchor to that because it makes it tangible. What I'm talking about with coffee is there's a real parallel between that and, let's say, the guys are wild farmed, where essentially coffee farmers don't get to decide how much they get for their crop. That price is decided by that New York-based commodity index called the CE market, and the reason there's, if you want to call it injustice, I don't think that you're far off. But the reason there's that injustice is that at the end of the day, the farmer doesn't, the price of fertilizer is completely out of their control.
Yeah.
The weather's completely out of their control. And with global warming, that is having an effect on coffee, a big effect in some places. So your input costs are beyond your control. Your yields are beyond your control. And then at the end of it, someone else is deciding how much you get paid for it.
Yeah.
That's mad. I mean, let's break that down into a normal business, right?
Yeah.
So I always like to think of a bakery because it's just everyone knows a bakery. But like, that's like me walking into, I was going to say Exploding Bakery. They're not there. It's Portal Pizza. Portal Pizza. I walk into Portal Pizza, nice little plug on Queen Street. And I look at the menu. I say, I'd like that, Porco Rosso, but actually I want to pay 10 quid for it. They're like, well, no, it's 14 quid. I'm like, yeah, but I don't think it's worth that.
Yeah.
They'd be like, get the fuck out.
Yeah.
So, that's not how the world works, right? So why is it that why is it any different for farmers? So what we've done is we've got a system, a different way of buying coffee at Roastworks, which isn't actually that revolutionary. But what we've done is we've got a system where we make sure that our producers, we know their cost of production. That's the most important thing is we only work with supply chains where we can have the visibility of what the farmer's cost of production actually was. So it starts with that. And that sounds simple, but it's actually harder than you think because actually a lot of suppliers of coffee don't want you to see that because you can do the maths and go, hang on, the farmer's getting ripped off. So we start with that. And luckily there are ways to do that, which is amazing. And sometimes that means going a little bit more direct. But we still have a supply chain. I never hide behind the fact that we have exporters, we have importers. And even the guys that saying they do direct trade, most of the time they still have that supply chain there. So we're not dishonest about that. So start with the cost of production. And then the other crucial thing is knowing what the farm gate price is. Again, very difficult to get that data sometimes because, again,
what's a farm gate price?
Farm gate price is what the farmer got paid.
Okay, cool.
Because at the end of the day, normally a roaster doesn't get to actually decide that really, because you got these traders in the middle. So, and then we have a safeguard in place to make sure that farmer never earns less than a sustainable income. Now, that sounds a bit woolly. If I'm pressed on it, I can give you more detail on it. But the trouble is that's different for every single producer we buy coffee from. Most people don't know, but Peru actually has a minimum wage, for example, whereas Honduras doesn't. Brazil's completely different. East Africa's completely different. We're talking about enormously different economic challenges and climate. But we have got an agreement in place where we understand from visiting the farmers, from visiting the producers, talking to them, understanding what sort of price do they need, what's the sort of floor price that they need, below which they wouldn't be able to invest in their farm, invest in their livelihoods. And the key thing about that, Lou, is that the problem is that coffee farming is becoming an unsustainable business.
I was just going to say.
So why does it matter?
Yeah.
Why does it? Well, because
you won't have coffee.
We actually won't have coffee.
Years or whatever,
I think coffee. I actually saw Dylan Page on YouTube say something about this the other day. He was on a coffee farm, but coffee's facing two existential crises. One is global warming, and that's a genuine threat. But the other problem is that coffee farmers today are actually worse off than they were 30 years ago if you take inflation into account. So it's a dying art, and all you need to do is go to a coffee producing country and visit 10 farms. You'll see every single one of those 10 farms is run by an old man. Yeah. Middle-aged old man. Sometimes women in Guatemala, that's very common because the husband's had to move to a city to get a proper job to make money for the family. So the wife is left to run the farm, but that's not a positive thing, unfortunately. So the reason there's a lot of female farmers sometimes in Central America is not because of choice, it's because of necessity.
And they'll have kids that they need to look after as well.
Buggered off.
Oh, wow.
Because why would you? Same with the UK. Why would you farm? Why would you farm? For the love of it, for the lifestyle of it, sure, but that's not really sustainable, is it?
That from watching again Clark's Farm, that's why they do it. Yeah. But again, it's not sustainable, and it's not going to.
Well, we're lucky that there are people out there who are like, this is my lifestyle, even if it doesn't make any money. I want to do it.
But their kids and the next generation of those families, and anyone think about getting into it, is like, well, what's the motivation? Why would I do this?
Exactly, and the thing is, the majority of coffee has to be traded that way, and I can't do anything about that. Roastworks roasts 140 tons, which is literally nothing. I can't do the maths. I'd have to get my phone out. But Brazil produces 50, 60 million sacks of coffee, 60 kilo sacks of coffee. So take 60 million times 60. That's what Brazil produces in tons. It's a lot more than 140, right? So we can't. There's nothing we can really do to affect a change in the wider industry, but we have to lead by example.
Yeah.
And I guess it's a bit like Wild Farm. You can only do what you can do. But there is another way, there's another way, and that's really great. And that's what we're trying to do. So about 85% of all the coffee we buy at the moment is bought with that structure.
Yeah.
And the other 15 we're working on, and that's actually the African coffees that are really difficult.
And you've got a lot of relationship, and you sell into a lot of the supermarkets, a lot of international distributors, etc.
Yeah.
How do they respond to that message? Because if you're buying it for more expensive than the C market, essentially, how do they react? Because does that mean you get less margin, or it's more expensive to a distributor and obviously end user probably, but yeah.
So what's really interesting about that is that the consumer price doesn't actually change that much. And the reason for that is that the price that you pay on shelf doesn't track the C price. So this is the other injustice, is that most people don't know this, but since 2019 to today, so in 7 years, the C market has quadrupled.
Yeah.
So before COVID, the C market is an index which is based on US cents per pound of coffee, LB, right?
Yeah.
So cents per pound. Think of it that way. So up until a couple of months ago, it was you were paying over $4 or 400 cents per pound. And in 2019, it was under $1. So it's gone from 97 cents to, let's say, 420 cents for a 20. All right, there's the Tourette's.
That's for us.
In 6 or 7 years, right? And the price of a cup of coffee or the price of a bag of hot lava java. Why am I plugging Ted Harrogate? Or any coffee. Yeah, cut that out. It's just a bit of, low-hanging fruit. But a cost of a bag of coffee or the cost of a cup of coffee has not quadrupled in that time.
Yeah.
Right? So someone somewhere is absorbing some of that.
Yeah.
And so what has actually happened is everybody's made less margin in coffee.
Okay.
But the farmer is the guy that picks up the bill. So right now, farmers are actually making money. Yeah. So right now, there's no problem. There's the market's at $3.80, $3.60, something like that, $3.60. It's fine. Okay. Cost of production for most farmers is somewhere between, let's say, $1.80 as a really, but generally like under $2 is kind of cost of production. So if the market's at $3.60, farmers are making money today. Yeah. The issue is when the C market falls below that cost of production.
Yeah.
And that's when, and that will happen. I've seen it happen. I've been in this long enough to see it go up and down. And it's what we do when the market falls below that cost of production that matters. And in that case, yes, we probably will be more expensive than some of our competitors. But trust me, coffee brands do not drop their prices because the C market went down. They hold them. Yeah. So you won't see the price of coffee dramatically falling if the C market falls. Yeah. It just doesn't work like that.
It's like diesel, really.
So in a way, exactly. And they'll just make more money. Yeah. And we're all in that game of hedging our bets over longer periods of time, decades, really. Yeah. So I think for us, right now, today, Roastworks isn't really that much more expensive than other brands of comparable quality. One day, I think we will be if the C market really drops off. Yeah. But then by that point, hopefully we would have done a good enough job of selling our vision so people see the value and understand why they're paying more. Okay. So that's the game.
So what can the consumer do?
Ooh. So
besides, obviously buy Roastworks.
Yeah, of course.
It's amazing coffee. My favorite's the Truth. But
fantastic. Thank you for the plug.
If they can't get Roastworks or if they want to try any other coffees, what can they do to make sure the farmer is getting paid well?
Enough.
So the default is buy specialty grade coffee.
Yeah.
So how do you know specialty grade? Well, it's not like, luckily with specialty grade, we're not talking like ceremonial grade matcha where it's like, what does it mean? Nothing. Or natural wine, what does it actually mean? Yeah. Specialty grade is an actual, it's a grading system. Anything that scores over 80 points is specialty grade. And generally speaking, local roasters to anywhere, there's so many independent roasters around the UK now, you're never more than a couple miles from one. Independent specialty roasters are in abundance. Find one near you, and you'll know if it's specialty grade or not. Ask them. It should be very clear on their website at the point of purchase. And if you're doing that, there's actually a safety net there already, because a farmer who grows specialty grade coffee hasn't done so by accident. They've invested in their farm. They've made a conscious decision to increase the quality, and they are going to get. There is a premium that roasters or importers have to pay for that coffee. Yeah. And so by buying specialty, you are buying coffee that the farmers got paid more for. So that's the first thing.
Okay.
And I think that's probably the most easy blanket answer. Locally roasted specialty coffee, you can almost guarantee the farmer's going to be okay. Okay. And then beyond that, I think, look, there are other roasters that are doing direct trade and I hate to say it, but Union Hand Roasters is one of them. You know, they genuinely do. And actually, I hate to say this as well. I don't know why I hate it. They're a great company, but Cafe Direct.
Yeah.
Cafe Direct Machu Picchu is about as sustainable as you can get.
Okay.
So not a small roaster, not independent. Well, not independent. But they actually, I know how well they source coffee, they source direct from producers in Peru, and they have a stake in the business, and it's amazing. So there are other businesses, big and small, out there.
Model that as well. Really.
Yeah, so I'm plugging a couple other businesses, not just Taylor's of Harrogate. Right. But they do it. You know, even Taylor's. I know. You know, who's the head of coffee over there. And they do a good job. You know. Yeah.
So we've had
just don't buy Nestle. All right.
Yeah, we've spoken with a few breweries actually, and they talk. We've spoken a lot about the RPAs that launch, the independent RPA that launches, and then they get bought out by a bigger brewer.
Yeah.
And then the independent companies, they have a process that they stick to because they believe it's better. It makes it a little slightly more expensive, but their final product is a lot better quality. Are you seeing a similar sort of thing in coffee where the big boys will buy a small company and then that independent and the really good processes and paying the farmer well, does that start getting stripped out, or is it different in coffee?
Weirdly, it's not the same game as in brewing, where it's very common for a larger brewer to buy the small brewer who, you know, maybe regional or whatever. It doesn't happen in coffee. So what we've seen small independent roasters scaling and becoming bigger, and I think a good example of that is Origin Coffee in Cornwall, who Tom's been running that since 2004, and now they are a national brand really with national counts and hubs everywhere and stuff, and one day maybe someone will buy them, but I don't know what their turnover is, but they're pretty big, and they've got that on their own, so it's not really the same thing. But what you are seeing is larger brands emulating specialty coffee or independent roasters. So Taylor's is a good example. There's always a kind of specialty arm to these larger businesses. Even Lavazza have that. They have their 1906 or whatever it's called brand, and it's sort of meant to be this kind of pseudo specialty thing. I think that's what's happening is rather than acquiring the businesses, they think they can do it on their own. And it's no one's convinced, unfortunately. No. So I actually would like to see that happen more, because I think then I don't think it would necessarily get stripped out. I think that ethos would come along with it, and it would actually change maybe things for the better internally in those larger businesses. It does happen in the States a bit. Nestle bought Blue Bottle, Jab Holdings have bought Stumptown in Oregon. So that is happening more in the States, but in the UK we don't see it.
Okay, cool. Tell us about a couple of milestones along the way that you remember and I remember this moment and I think this is incredible.
This is it. Right there.
This is the top. This is
the pinnacle.
This is as good as it gets.
We're at the summit, guys. No, sorry, that sounds really funny.
You regret saying
No, I don't know. Listen, of course there's it's funny actually, because I've written on LinkedIn about this. So obviously Littles, me going on to Dragon's Den representing Littles a couple of years ago, pitching Littles, and the journey that took me on with Steve Bartlett and all that, obviously, that changed a lot, and it's changed me a lot. And whilst I turned down the offer in the end, just for clarity.
I remember that.
It's a hell of a thing to do. I was saying this the other day, when it comes to Littles, I feel like we've almost run 3 different businesses over the last 16 years.
Okay.
And I'm not going to kind of go into the different phases of it, but I've been doing Littles for so long, it kind of feels like there's been 3 iterations of it. But honestly, this sounds super corny, but the things that really, it's just work.
Yeah.
And for me, I do find it difficult to sort of distinguish where work ends and the person begins, because I have a feeling, I don't have hobbies. I have a feeling that what I do for a living is kind of who I am.
Yeah.
But I've got 2 kids, the birth of my kids, and every day that's the challenge, and it's exciting and frustrating and everything that comes with being a dad, and you know, and then like you got these little moments with my wife. Like I just have this really vivid memory last summer of us being on a rooftop in Valencia having a drink.
Posts,
yeah, and I know I keep going on about that, but it's like it was such a lovely.
That's
we just don't get to do it that often.
Yeah.
The aforementioned children.
Yes.
And you know, being able to do that, and it was just such a perfect evening. And I just thought, you know, you just sometimes kind of pinch yourself and go, right, hang on, work is important, and it is overbearing and consuming, especially with two businesses. But like, yeah, and you know, I could sit here and say, here's when we got our Sainsbury's listing in 2016, but it's like,
so
it's a bit lame, isn't it?
But those moments there, you're spending with the person you love the most, and you're also reflecting on the business as well. And I think that
we spent half the night talking about our kids, which is lame because we just left them, and half the night talking about strategy.
Yeah. You know? and you can sit back and think, well, we've done pretty good, and we've got a vision, and we're enjoying working together. And I know a little bit about your story, but I also know that I don't know if you want to talk a huge amount about this, but the deal with Stephen Bartlett was a lot because you wanted to focus on your family, wasn't it? That didn't go through.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I gave a keynote yesterday about this very topic, about perspective and who are you comparing yourself to? How do you know you're doing well was the question I posed to the audience. What's your measure for success, and what's your benchmark? And the trouble is nowadays, I mean, I don't know if everyone else is in the same boat, but I certainly succumb to the kind of the bullshit on LinkedIn.
Of course.
And it's really toxic for me because I'm plugged into all these people, whether it's the guys at Perfect TED or the guys at Grind or the guys at whoever it is. And you know, and some of them, you know, have kind of come through the same journey as me, whether it's like Amelia at Boldbean or whatever. Like, massive respect to all those people and their businesses, but I am always comparing myself to them, and always looking at it thinking, why am I such a loser?
Yeah, but that's just social media, isn't it? It just makes
awful.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
Well, it is, and I thought I was better than that, if I'm honest, because I don't have an Instagram. I came off those things deliberately because they were having an effect on how I was feeling.
They do, of course.
And I think that, you know, whilst my mental health isn't ever, you know, I've done talking therapy, but it's not like a massive issue for me in my life. But there have been times where that stuff has brought me down, and I've had to kind of deal with it head on. And so it's sort of, I've forgotten the original question, but it was something about Steve Bartlett, wasn't it? And the reason I turned it down, absolutely. And it was that kind of, I didn't realize what I was opening the door to by saying yes to him. I didn't realize that it was like, he wants me to be more like Mr. Beast, you know, Jimmy, whatever his name is. I'm like, what? No, like that guy hasn't got kids. That's the start, you know? And everyone's like, well, everyone's got kids. It's like, no, listen, if you don't have kids, you have no idea how much pressure that is, right? The difference between kids and no kids is night and day. I mean, Steve's going to find this out at some point because I think he's trying to get his missus pregnant. I don't know if that's public knowledge, but they've just got engaged or whatever. Hey, listen, I'm sure it's on the cards. Can we cut that bit out? Okay. Anyway, but you know, one day when he has children, if he has children, he'll realize how that changes the dynamic. And also, I'm not 20-something, and I want my business to be self-funded. That's kind of important. I don't want a boss.
And you don't want to be in London every second.
I don't want to be in London. I don't want someone breathing down my neck saying, "Where's my dividend?" I'm like, bro, seriously, you know?
Yeah. So for Dragon's Den, was it almost like it proved to you that you're doing something amazing and you're on the right path?
It did, but not at first. So I felt a massive sense of relief when I turned down the offer. And by the way, I just want to say on the record, I have absolutely nothing against Stephen Bartlett. Like, there's been a lot of like crap thrown at him recently about the 3 glasses of wine ruining his life and all that. And I have nothing really but good things to say about him. Yeah. I like the guy. Yeah. I like him, and he is going to change the world a little bit. Love him or hate him, he's going to change the world a little bit. And so I have a lot of respect for him. I have a lot of time for him, and I have nothing but personally, the person I only got to know him a little bit, but what I got to know of him, it was a good person. So I just want to clear that up, because sometimes I talk about it, it sounds like I'm throwing shade, and I'm actually not. Yeah. It's the process and the journey that I have an issue with, and the expectation that I didn't realize was the expectation.
Sure.
And yeah, what was your question again?
It just like, did it prove to you that like you're doing the right thing? And like, what came with when you turned it down?
So relief, and then a sense of relief that I had turned it down, because I knew deep down, that was my gut saying I did the right thing, but then a sense of failure, because I was like, why did I not make that work? How could I not make that work? And then the kind of, few months after that, seeing all these brand scaling at speed and
Yeah.
thinking like, well, not like regret. I didn't regret turning it down, but I was like, what's my version of that?
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until I sat down with my friend Lottie, who's an advisor.
Here I am. I'm joking.
There's another Lottie.
I'm Lottie.
Another Lottie.
But hang on, there's three
That's
Lotties
three.
now. There's like a Lottie cubed. Oh my God. Sorry.
Anyway, sorry.
Lottie Unwin, I'm going to plug her. She runs a business called Brand Hackers.
Okay.
We've engaged with them. That she's essentially our fractional CMO, I suppose, and we've outsourced a lot of our marketing to them, marketing functions to them. She's absolutely amazing. And I sat down for a coffee with her a few months ago, and she's the one that held the mirror up and made me see that what we've got is actually worth something and is something to celebrate. Yeah. And sometimes you just need, it can be quite lonely at the top. And what I mean by that is that there's not a lot of people in my positions going to tell me that I've done well. And Dragon's Den, to begin with, the process was that validation. Those 4 offers and the, Steve and Deborah and Peter sort of fighting over me. That was really validating. And come out of that process thinking I'm the king of the world. Turned it down, felt like a piece of crap, and then I needed someone else to kind of go, no, this is good. It's weird, but everybody needs praise.
Everybody does, yeah.
But in my position, there's not a lot of people that can do that. So I need to hire that in. Thank you, Lottie.
Yeah.
So in
in
closing. Just in a few sentences, I suppose. What's next for Roastworks?
Really exciting things. I think I've deliberately kept my foot off the throttle with Roastworks from a growth perspective. So my ethos has always been, because I run the 2 businesses, the philosophy has always been have a great product, a great team, and not to put pressure on growth. I've actively not put pressure on the business to grow. But it grew because we did those 3 things. Well, it's always grown, but we actually grew quite a lot last year. So now I'm like, maybe we need to actually focus on this. So we've got a couple of posts out there for growth roles.
Okay.
And I really want to see what we can do in the wholesale market. So more cafes serving the truth. What we can do with D2C. Grocery, I'm not really pushing at the moment. Waitrose and Ocado, that I'm happy with that. But really, so there's kind of like, I want to see if we can push it a little bit. I want to see how we can expand or extend that sourcing model from 85% to 100% over the next couple of years and make sure that we have that visibility of farm gate pricing and cost of production and that safeguard in place for all our producers. And that's pretty much it, really.
Cool.
I think.
Amazing.
Yeah. See how that goes. That's quite a tall order, to be fair.
There's a lot there.
Yeah, easy to say. In my brain, I'm like, oh my God.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much.
It's been so interesting.
Thanks for popping in, and happy days. Keep going.
Happy days.
Try
Thank you,
some
guys.
coffee, guys.
Cheers.
That's fine.